While progressing in life, at times we feel stuck due to the lack of knowledge of how to manage our time well. Deciding how to prioritize the different facets of daily self-management gets hectic, whether it's for school students, university students, or working people. The lack of motivation, a great amount of workload, and the expectations of the academic front in college or at one's workplace is draining for an individual. Under such circumstances, a helping hand can instruct and support us in setting the right direction for our goals. At MentorMitr, we engage with individuals wherever they are in their journey of career development and help them learn life skills to manage complex situations while enhancing their potential and performance to optimum. Our involvement helps individuals to set the right goals and create options by following an objective process, thereby enabling them to define and manage their priorities. We help them generate self-awareness and teach them how to prioritize their time effectively. We also enhance their emotional quotient with techniques like mind mapping and dealing with success and failure to reinforce their goals and processes, while also grooming them with soft skills that are necessary for the competitive selection process, thus making them confident and prepared for success.
In the weekly stats section, you will find a visual representation of your activities and tasks conducted throughout the week based off of the data that you have provided us with in the time tracker section. The weekly
While progressing in life, at times we feel stuck due to the lack of knowledge of how to manage our time well. Deciding how to prioritize the different facets of daily self-management gets hectic, whether it's for school students, university students, or working people. The lack of motivation, a great amount of workload, and the expectations of the academic front in college or at one's workplace is draining for an individual. Under such circumstances, a helping hand can instruct and support us in setting the right direction for our goals. At MentorMitr, we engage with individuals wherever they are in their journey of career development and help them learn life skills to manage complex situations while enhancing their potential and performance to optimum. Our involvement helps individuals to set the right goals and create options by following an objective process, thereby enabling them to define and manage their priorities. We help them generate self-awareness and teach them how to prioritize their time effectively. We also enhance their emotional quotient with techniques like mind mapping and dealing with success and failure to reinforce their goals and processes, while also grooming them with soft skills that are necessary for the competitive selection process, thus making them confident and prepared for success. While progressing in life, at times we feel stuck due to the lack of knowledge of how to manage our time well. Deciding how to prioritize the different facets of daily self-management gets hectic, whether it's for school students, university students, or working people. The lack of motivation, a great amount of workload, and the expectations of the academic front in college or at one's workplace is draining for an individual. Under such circumstances, a helping hand can instruct and support us in setting the right direction for our goals. At MentorMitr, we engage with individuals wherever they are in their journey of career development and help them learn life skills to manage complex situations while enhancing their potential and performance to optimum. Our involvement helps individuals to set the right goals and create options by following an objective process, thereby enabling them to define and manage their priorities. We help them generate self-awareness and teach them how to prioritize their time effectively. We also enhance their emotional quotient with techniques like mind mapping and dealing with success and failure to reinforce their goals and processes, while also grooming them with soft skills that are necessary for the competitive selection process, thus making them confident and prepared for success. While progressing in life, at times we feel stuck due to the lack of knowledge of how to manage our time well. Deciding how to prioritize the different facets of daily self-management gets hectic, whether it's for school students, university students, or working people. The lack of motivation, a great amount of workload, and the expectations of the academic front in college or at one's workplace is draining for an individual. Under such circumstances, a helping hand can instruct and support us in setting the right direction for our goals. At MentorMitr, we engage with individuals wherever they are in their journey of career development and help them learn life skills to manage complex situations while enhancing their potential and performance to optimum. Our involvement helps individuals to set the right goals and create options by following an objective process, thereby enabling them to define and manage their priorities. We help them generate self-awareness and teach them how to prioritize their time effectively. We also enhance their emotional quotient with techniques like mind mapping and dealing with success and failure to reinforce their goals and processes, while also grooming them with soft skills that are necessary for the competitive selection process, thus making them confident and prepared for success. While progressing in life, at times we feel stuck due to the lack of knowledge of how to manage our time well. Deciding how to prioritize the different facets of daily self-management gets hectic, whether it's for school students, university students, or working people. The lack of motivation, a great amount of workload, and the expectations of the academic front in college or at one's workplace is draining for an individual. Under such circumstances, a helping hand can instruct and support us in setting the right direction for our goals. At MentorMitr, we engage with individuals wherever they are in their journey of career development and help them learn life skills to manage complex situations while enhancing their potential and performance to optimum. Our involvement helps individuals to set the right goals and create options by following an objective process, thereby enabling them to define and manage their priorities. We help them generate self-awareness and teach them how to prioritize their time effectively. We also enhance their emotional quotient with techniques like mind mapping and dealing with success and failure to reinforce their goals and processes, while also grooming them with soft skills that are necessary for the competitive selection process, thus making them confident and prepared for success.
The steps to avail the e-certificate are as follows. Attend the full webinar. Once you see thank you displayed on the screen, there will appear a link to Google attendance form in the chat box. Click to mark your attendance and get the feedback form emailed. Fill the questionnaire that you receive on your mail for the details. Follow our page on Instagram and Facebook. If the above stated steps are followed, an e-certificate will be automatically mailed to you. The certificates will be mailed within 24 to 48 hours. Kindly have patience for the same. MentorMitr is a mentoring organization. Our aim is to guide individuals wherever they are in the journey of career development and help them learn life skills to manage complex situations while enhancing their academic performance to optimum. Our involvement helps students to set the right goals and enables them to define and manage their priorities as well as enhance their EQ. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on how to make relationships work. The session will be led by established professional Dr. Manpreet and Ms. Pooja Awasthi. Feel free to leave your questions in the chat box and we will try to answer them at the end. Our first speaker for the evening is Dr. Manpreet. Dr. Manpreet is a chartered psychologist and an associate law lecturer at the University of West of England. She is currently undergoing her second doctoral journey in counseling psychology. She continues to pursue her research interests in behavioral addictions, more specifically technological addictions, and alongside undertaking clinical workout, LifeSpace, which is a charitable counseling service based at the University of the West of England. I would now request ma'am to please enlighten our audience.
Hello, and thank you for having me. So my presentation today will focus on the psychological perspective of what constitutes a healthy relationship. So some of the questions that I'm looking to answer or just generally have the audience or the attendees think about is, how does one define a healthy relationship, and what determines a healthy relationship? And this is also taking into consideration the cultural context, as we may be dispersed all over the world, and also, you know, what our values represent. And I speak in terms of a British South Asian, so all my ancestry line is from India. I'm a second generation in the UK, but at the same time, it's really to understand what healthy means, whilst acknowledging the culture that I'm in, or you all are in. So I will, if we just move to the next slide. Yeah, so philosophically, you know, the philosophical stance of relationships, we look at subjectivity. Everything is subjective based on our beliefs, our values, our knowledge and ideas, and they are all created over time. So a lot of how we behave, or what we believe in and what we hold value in, is influenced by our immediate environments, culture and society. But kind of taking also a philosophical stance when we talk about love, and love doesn't mean in a romantic relationship, it can mean a whole number of things. The idea is that nobody can teach you love. Love you have to find yourself and within your own being. So a lot of religious scripts tell us it's by raising our consciousness, or reaching the third eye. And when love comes, there is no question of responsibility. So I really like this quote: you do things because you enjoy doing them for a person you love, not out of resentment. You know, like I'm just thinking about gender roles in a culture, and how, let's say, for example, in an Indian culture, a woman may be more inclined to take on all the duties because that's what cultures, you know, that's what society states, that's what families state, that's a message that's always been passed down. But that's not something that we end up enjoying. It comes with resentment. So there's a lot of kind of soul searching to be done with that too. And the next slide is just looking at more broadly, what does psychological theory tell us about healthy relationships? So there's a number of different concepts. For example, the self-construal, it's the extent to which the self is defined independently of others or interdependently with others. So again, I really bring cultural differences into this. So who am I as an individual? Where am I going as an individual? But what is my role, or where is my role within others, within my immediate setting? And then there's the relationship between the interpersonal and the intrapersonal. So the relationship you have with others, again, they all start from the immediate environment, versus the relationship you have with yourself. And, you know, when I think about the relationship we may have with ourselves, is it a nice place in your mind, or is it a not very pleasant place? Because that's a reflection of how we interact with others. And then we've got the intrapsychic versus the intrapersonal, so which is the psyche versus the person who emerges as a social and cultural creature rather than just this sexual and biological one. And the one that I didn't add on there was also existentialism versus existential crisis. So again, that fits into psychology and philosophy. Am I living existentially? In existentialism, in that, am I living true to my values? Do I know what my values are? Or am I living in an existential crisis, which would say, I don't know what my purpose in life is. I don't know what or how I'm going to get there. And that often leads to anxiety, depression, low mood, and the other dysphoric mood states that accompany that. And then I feel that as a British Indian woman, but also from a culture where there's a lot of generational and intergenerational burdens, or perhaps traumas, the psychodynamic perspective is really key to to just provide some context. So in the sense that, there's three different elements to our being according to the psychodynamic perspective, but more broadly, the theory just looks at the unconscious influences our behavior and how we communicate with others. So sometimes we have very limited awareness or none at all of its occurrence. So these are our interactions with others. Human personality and abnormalities can develop from childhood, so thus influencing the way we relate to others. And again, this is quite important, sometimes to even reflect back on those really important early years and how they played a significant role in how we are today. So were there childhood needs that were not met? Were we brought up in strict households? Was there a conflict of the Western and Eastern culture? All those things, and how our parents and immediate family, we also live in multi-generational families as well. So taking into context not just our family, but what did the extended family within the environment, how did they influence how we relate to others during childhood? And that's probably how we relate now. So we're also motivated by social interests, and our primary life's problems are social ones, strangely, or should I say strangely, or, is it surprising? So social environments express our subjectivities in one's consciousness of having something in common with others towards a betterment of society. So looking at the psychodynamic more specifically, which is on the next slide, it's looking at the conscious, the pre-conscious, and the unconscious. So you can see from that the picture there that the conscious is something that we are aware of at the time, but it only represents the tip of the iceberg. So then we move into the pre-conscious state. So that's where there's the ego and parts of the superego. And this is basically saying, in a situation, most of our thoughts and ideas are not accessible to us, but that could just be how we are living with our lives as well. We may not have access to why we are the way we are. And then we move lower, which is even in more depth, is the unconscious. So this part of our mind is completely inaccessible, and we're not aware of what's going on there. And just to also say that if someone does go to psychodynamic or use a psychodynamic approach in therapy, you could be in therapy for quite a long time before you even touch the pre-conscious. So that's just something that it's just to remain mindful of. And then on the next slide, we're looking at a systemic perspective. I do feel that the systemic theory is really important to how, again, the way we live, the way we relate to others, and it's a great complement to the psychodynamic theory as well. So the key elements of using a systemic perspective, or being more systemically thinking, would be to maintain a level of neutrality and curiosity. So for example, when we are in a situation, it's very difficult to be neutral when we feel that someone's saying some horrible things to us, or if we may have been rejected from a job. But this perspective says, actually be quite curious about it. How was I presenting? What was going on in my environment? I'm an individual, but I'm governed by a lot of different systems. So the microsystem is, micro and mesosystems are our immediate families, and the thoughts and processes that go around that. And then we've got our school, teaching, education. So as we go up, and then, in the macro system is the good laws that we abide to, or religious stances that we may abide to. So you can see that it can be a top-down process, or very difficult to be a bottom-up, and we're trying to aim for the bottom-up. So if we as the individual understand where we stand, it can really move and shift us from the why I've got this problem, and be able to explore it in attempt to directly or really rapidly change the direction in which a relationship is consistently engaged in a negative feedback loop. So a negative feedback loop may look like, I don't know, perhaps arguing with our parents. They might say that we don't help them clean up. And we might say, actually, you nag me so much, that's why I don't want to do it. So you can see how it ends up in a negative cycle of a feedback loop. So the idea is to step back, remain neutral and curious. And then on the next slide, just thinking about family relationships within the systemic perspective. So family systems are complex systems, but they aren't systems in isolation. They all play a role. So I'm just thinking about the modern way of living. We might not be living with our parents after marriage, for example, or with in-laws. However, we are a product of that childhood environment. So we still bring those thoughts, those values into our marriage, and then a new respect, and then our own family. So as Chamberlain says, changes occur in self-organizing systems when the buildup of system energy propels the system towards disruption, disorder, and confusion and irregularity. So basically, in a nutshell, saying if we don't understand our systems and what's going on in there, it's going to bring up a lot of confusion. It's going to bring up really, really, dysphoric mood states as well. And on the next slide, we're looking at just more broadly now, moving away from the psychological and the philosophical perspective, just the role of media and social media in perceived healthy relationships. So, just thinking about, and this is some of my work I do with behavioral addictions. So just sometimes thinking about how does the media influence the way we view our relationships. And as it is Valentine's Day today, I'm just thinking about the unrealistic expectations that come with what perceived love looks like. And there have been many studies, I haven't referenced them here right now, but if anyone does need the reference, please feel free to contact me. There have been many psychological studies that have shown links to depression, low mood, low self-esteem, making daily life seem less interesting because there's this huge disconnect from the current environment. So, even just the Buddhist concept or even any religious, it's kind of being in the present moment. And social media has this way of just taking it away from us. So, and then there's that whole social comparison as well. Oh, why did I not get those nice flowers? But that woman on social media did for Valentine's Day. So that social comparison, it's one's own negative cognitive biases. And just generally, I was just thinking as well about Bollywood and Hollywood and how cultural and social filters on how relationships should be experienced. This idea that you're going to get swept away, or, that, what family is everything, and, but they don't always identify the complexities that come with that, and how generational changes play a key role in that too. And I'm also, the other thing about Bollywood, I was just thinking as well about the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law relationship. They almost filter what that relationship should look like. And it seems like people just follow that. Whether you're in India, whether you're in a Western country, as an Indian, there's almost this expectation that a mother-in-law is going to be horrible to a daughter-in-law. And I always wonder how much of that is influenced by media. And on the next slide, just thinking about boundaries, there's a lot of literature out there, not always accessible and not always easy to follow. Some of the stuff that I've outlined here is psychodynamic, but I suppose that's because in psychodynamic practice, boundaries are essential, especially if someone's going to be in therapy for a very, very long time. So there's the work of Hartman, who outlines thick and thin boundaries. While it's not an easy read, it is quite helpful to just have it in the back just to consider what boundaries may look like for you in your own personal life, and how that may be embedded into values, and that could go into your career. How are you maintaining boundaries with other people now that you know what boundaries are? Because we instinctively assume we know what they are, but the concept is rarely defined. So I definitely encourage to find your own definition from that. So in for example, it might be just learning to say no when you know that it's going to lead to resentment. So if you've spent more time on the phone to somebody dealing with some of their problems and haven't left any time for yourself, that can often lead to resentment, and that can play out in our environment. But actually, if we go back to that situation, we didn't set the boundary to begin with. And it's also this, it's a boundary is a soul's wish to take care of yourself. So we do want to take care of ourselves, but then also, again, society tells us it's selfish, but it's selfless to take care of family and not yourself. But actually, pouring out of an empty cup, we're not going to be helpful to anybody. But again, like I said, there's no right or wrong way to implement boundaries. But it's definitely worth thinking. It's definitely worth thinking about, especially when it can influence how we conduct our jobs, what career path we take, what how we may relate to others in educational settings. So I definitely recommend taking those into consideration. And then on the next slide, I'm just also, I'm an advocate of practice, not perfection. The more we practice, the easier certain things become, but the hardest part is starting. And self-care and self-compassion is not something that's taught to us. We're very much taught to be ashamed of ourselves, or we're very much told to live by a certain value, and the key part being told to live, not shown how to live. So that's where the narrative changes for me. For example, with my own children, if I'm self-caring and if I'm self-compassionate and I forgive myself for things that I've done that weren't right at the time, then my children don't need to learn that, because they see me doing it. And with that also comes defining what self-care is for you. So a pamper day it could constitute as self-care, but I would see it something more like just starting with 3 minutes and affirming yourself, starting the day by affirming yourself with small bits that you to include, like meditation. That's something I'm still learning myself. I've got 2 very small children, so I'm usually woken up by my children as opposed to waking up early myself. Really, really taking care of yourself in a way that you are your priority. Accountability, so being accountable for our own actions and acknowledging our own role, so in toxicity, so whether they're good relationships and bad relationships. So it's quite easy to say so and so said this to me, or so and so said that, but actually, again, neutrality and curiosity, it would say, actually, I think this is what I did here, how can I reflect on that? Making yourself a priority. Values-based living. A few of my colleagues do a lot of work around this and have very much encouraged a values-based living. But also, I thought this was quite useful. Our love languages. What are our love languages? And if we know what our own love language is, then we know what we would need from another person. And this doesn't mean in a marriage, it doesn't mean in a romantic relationship, but definitely in a number of other settings, in how we relate to others, our parents, maybe asking them to understand what a love language is as well. And that's pretty much it. I mean, if you have any questions, I know that they will be at the end.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your views, valuable advice, and insights with us on the subject. I'm
You're
sure
very
the audience will now be more aware about the importance of maintaining relationships in their life.
Thank you.
I would like to repeat the steps to will the e-certificates before moving on to our next speaker. Attend the full webinar. Once you see thank you displayed on the screen, there will appear a link to Google Attendance form in the chat box. Click to mark your attendance and get the feedback form emailed. Fill the questionnaire that you receive on your mail for the details. Follow our page on Instagram and Facebook. If the above stated steps are followed, an e-certificate will be automatically mailed to you. The certificates will be mailed within 24 to 48 hours. Kindly have patience for the same. Our second speaker for the evening is Miss Pooja Avasti. Miss Pooja is a leadership coach. She has been an educationalist, an entrepreneur, a soft skills expert, and an image consultant. She has extensively worked in the areas of leadership development and has conducted 1,000 plus sessions in leadership, soft skills, and wellness counseling, while having mentored thousands of families for health and wellness. I would now request ma'am to please enlighten our audience.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. And thank you, MentorMitr, for giving me this opportunity. Always a pleasure. And especially today, because we just heard, and it was a great session, and lots of great points, especially on relationship. And that's what our topic is today. And, if we see, as humans, we are social beings, and relationships play a very important part, extremely important part, right? But the other thing also is because there is so much of digitization that has happened around us. Social media is so it's there all around us. I mean, today we are surrounded by a lot of things, but also increasingly people are finding themselves a little alone in the whole process, right? And loneliness and being alone also is a big thing that is, like I said, people have been experiencing. So I think very important to be in touch with things around us, and Manpreet also touched on it, and also to be to really now think and cultivate the right relationships in our lives. So okay, so let's talk about that when we talk about relationships, there are certain things that come into our mind, isn't it? And I'm talking from the perspective of maybe young people, especially the young people here, because a lot of times when we are in relationships, and relationships can be with anyone. It could be with friends, it could be with our peers, of course family is one big thing, but it could be anything. And a lot of times there's a lot of heartache also that goes with relationships, right? So always this feeling of being judged, right? And feeling sometimes not being reciprocated, wavelengths not matching up, getting intimidated sometimes by some people around us, could be friends, could be anybody, right? And these are challenges that I think everybody today faces, and it's not age. I said I'm speaking to the younger people here, but I don't think it's age specific. Also, these are challenges that anybody faces at any point of a time in their life, and they could be at any age bracket, right? And always remembering that relationship is a happy, secure place, and like I said, human beings are social, social animals, and they always like to be surrounded with people, around with people, and of course relationships. So what are the things that determine the relationships that I heard? So I just talked about why relationships are important. They, like I said, they are a happy, secure place for us. And also, there are certain relationships that we are born into, right? We are born into our family, our parents, our siblings, our cousins, and that entire family unit that we have around us. And because of this, and we always say that we can't choose our family, and so I think sometimes that's the reason why these relationships become even more special, because because you're not choosing them, they're there. So that that unconditional kind of a give and take starts happening, where we talk about family units. But having said that, in today's world, there are also a lot of challenges that arises, sometimes because of a lot of other issues, but mostly because of our mindsets as well. If I look at a very typical parents children relationship in today's world, right? We've always heard our parents, while growing up, telling us, I didn't speak to my mother like this, or I didn't, we never spoke about this to our father. And that's the kind of mindset each one of us grows up with, right? So like Manpreet said, a lot of things come to us subconsciously as well. We see things around us, we see how our parents, how their interactions are, how are they kind of, coping up with certain things, and we're not even thinking about it, and sometimes it just kind of ingrains into in our brain, right? I've had so many friends, who've had challenges, and they always ended up saying, I'm not going to be like that, or when I grow up, I'm going to be sure that I'm not going to behave like this. And over the years, when you talk to them and say, oh my God, we just, I just reacted in a similar manner, or I just turned up and, just said the same things that probably I thought I will never end up reacting in that particular manner, right? So there are lots of things that go into us subconsciously as well. So like I said, when we talk about mindsets, so we kind of grow up with that kind of a mindset. We just feel that, this is how we have to kind of work on that relationship, or that cycle that I call it the parent child cycle today, really. Where the children feel, oh, only if I had more understanding from my parents, I would respect them more, right? Or I would kind of, would probably, kind of communicate more, or it could be anything else, right? And the parents always feel, oh, I wish, I could get more respect, and then I could probably understand the situation more. So it's a kind of a vicious cycle that continues, right? So of course, I think one is we have to break that mindset. We are living in a different world today, and because of that, I think communication becomes very, very important. And I've talked in the earlier sessions also that communication where we can actually one to one talk about our feelings, talk about our resentments at times, because resentment also happens because of our inability to certain times not address certain issues. And why are we not addressing those issues is also because of our mindset. There are some barriers that are there. So instead of creating proper boundaries in regards, there are barriers. So when we're not able to cross those barriers, that's where the resentment happens, right? So breaking those mindsets, and then effective communication. I mean, having a one-to-one. I've seen so many children and parents communicating like that today, like, okay, can we just talk to you? I just want to address this issue, or I want to address this issue. What I'm trying to say is that resentment, building up resentment is, it's like drinking poison yourself. You feel you are affecting the other person, but it's not. You're really affecting, or it's causing you more harm than anybody else, right? And we can go our entire life saying that, oh, this person, my family did not understand me, or we can actually take those steps and work on those areas. So I'm talking about relationships in a very, very holistic manner, right? Why? Because I've dealt with a lot of people. I've had teenagers, grown up boys now. I know communication challenges, I know all those things, and I'm very, very lucky and privileged to be, a part of an organization and a part of a work, where apart from just the money and the success, which most of the people, when they talk about work, that's what it is. Like, okay, X amount of goals are there, money has to be made, and this much of success has to be made. I was very lucky and privileged in that manner, that work that was taking me towards those things also meant, working with a lot of people where relationships were very, very important. And not only were they important, there were certain things which were always being talked about and done. So coming from that perspective and really understanding the longevity of any work actually depends upon the kind of relationships and the kind of and if you have good relationships around you, you grow up to be more confident, more compassionate, more loving, and a more giving person, right? And that's a holistic view that we need to take in today's world, because everything is actually based on how we interact with people, and the kind of relationships that we can create. Of course, we know that certain years we spend a lot of time doing a certain point of activity, and then later on we realize, okay, life is all about creating and strengthening the bonds and the relationships that we have in life, right? But the gap between that, and the hurt, the resentments, and the feelings that are hurt, what we are trying to do today is to just help you to kind of bridge that gap, right? So that those many years don't have to be there for you to actually understand and value certain things that are around us. So all right, so that's about family, and even it happens with siblings. I think communication is a big thing today, right? Then of course our relationship with our friends, uh, where we talk about uh, why do we have better relationship with our friends? Because we just feel they have similar opinions, similar mindsets, and they're not judging, right? And that's why it becomes very easy to communicate with them vis-a-vis communicating with our family here. Then of course with our peers and colleagues, so the relationship that we need there is of course of encouragement, of understanding. Teamwork is there, so of course interpersonal skills also come into picture. Teamwork and team building skills also have to come into picture there. But I think very important thing is to understand, is to really being having that initiative to help somebody and to encourage is something that you would help you to create some good lasting relationships there, right? Spouse, partners, husband and wife, right? Or it could be boyfriend girlfriend, or it could be a partner, right? So what kind of relationship? So it's basically partnership. And like Manpreet said, we grow up with lots of conceptions about what love is. And we just grow up because we've seen certain things. We've been living, or we've been growing up and watching the Bollywood movies and the Hollywood movies, and how what love is supposed to be, and what an ideal house is supposed to be. We grew up with all those things being fed into our mind, right? A reality check. I grew up reading lots of Mills and Boons. At our times we didn't have those many movies and Netflix and nothing of that sort. All we had, all for us, what we had was Mills and Boons. And I know, I mean, till today we friends, we laugh about that Mills and Boons had a particular kind of a hero, right? And each every girl who was reading Mills and Boons always thought that that's the kind of person who exists, and vice versa, right? I don't know why guys didn't read Mills and Boons. Yeah, it was more of a girls thing. But anyway, so that's how one grows up thinking. So today it's more of partnership. It's more of people that you can be comfortable with, you can be friendly with, you can have meaningful conversations, you share the same interests, you share the same kind of long term vision of what life is, what your passions are, what your interest is, right? So those things are very important. And also about give and take. It's not about certain person has to take a more kind of a role. I don't think that is there in India also today. I think we girls are very well educated, independent, smart. The same thing happens with the guys today. So I think it's a very good place to have a perfectly equal partnership. And that's how, that's again a mindset. That's how we need to grow and to understand. So if you're ready for that, you could actually kind of strengthen the bond and uh, you know uh, have great relationships there, right? Okay, so to have strong and long term relationships, it's about, like I said, it's about give and take. I heard this a long time back, and it's somehow always stuck into my mind, is about emotional change. Like when we go to bank and we deposit money there in an X amount, and you need to take out that money because you have enough in your account, you can take it back. The same thing happens with our emotional balance as well. So every relationship is actually an account today, right? Not today. I mean, it is an account, right? If you're depositing enough, you can also withdraw, right? So it's always about putting enough emotional change in all your relationships, right? And like I said, it's give and take, and also never taking relationships to be like transactional. Sometimes if I did this much, I've always been there, I've always helped, and this person, at times I just feel that I know in today's world it's very easy to be transactional in that manner, but it's not, because I just feel that and I think the moment these things starts happening, you build your confidence and you suddenly kind of reconnect with your core values. And that's where the outside world also changes with you, your outside relationships also change with you, right? So I just feel that you don't bring yourself down because somebody else did not do the right thing, right? You continue because you are you, right? You have certain things, you have your core values, so you continue to do what is right, and you help the other person to rise to it rather than the opposite thing happening. And like I said, the moment you connect to what your core values are, what you really want, and how you're actually thinking, whether it's coming from a place of love, whether it's coming from a place of compassion, whether it's coming from a place of, let's say, just being, just being a good friend, or just being a group, a good partner. It could be coming from anywhere, right? But that's what really, really makes a difference, right? Of course, love, compassion, and understanding, in good doses, not where somebody is kind of, of course, I think today all of us are, we are aware which relationships this needs to go on, right? We know what toxic relationships can be. We know where other person is taking you for a ride, or we know where, somebody is affecting your self esteem. I think that's a toxic relationship. That's a relationship you have to just say absolutely no to, right? A relationship is, I'm talking about a relationship where somebody takes you as a person of worth. If somebody is ready to accept who you are and also would know the value that comes with you, right? So I that's an entirely different topic where we talk about toxic relationships. I know a lot of youngsters, where they could be going around, and then one person could say a lot of things, and the other person taking it at times, maybe taking it because, they're cool about it, or taking it because, it's okay, it's okay, I understand. No, I don't think so. That's not the right thing. That's a toxic relationship. If anybody puts you down and affects your self-esteem and confidence over a period of time, is just not cool. It's, we can't use a, like, can't kind of categorize it in those in that manner there. But like, having said that, it's a absolutely a different topic here. Loyalty, being loyal to some I feel just being loyal in a relationship. It could be in friends, or it could be, in your team that you're working in an office. It could be anywhere else. Just being loyal is such an endearing quality, and just helps you to create such strong relationships. And I can quote for myself, just being very loyal to my mentors over a period of time. Of course, at times I could see eye to eye with them. There are certain areas I don't see, but a lot of times I you know it that loyalty helped me to take some wrong steps, or to take some different steps, because my core value, I just stood by that, and that thing helped that relationship. So I think very, very important. And then, of course, no loose talk, no gossip. And especially if something has to be addressed, it should be addressed face to face, rather than addressing it to, it's like, this quote, I'm sure each one of you would have probably heard, that, if you feel there is something not right, can you tell me, rather than I get to hear from somebody else. So I think that's another very, very important qualities. And I love the talk that Manpreet did on boundaries, right? And I just feel that there can be no relationship without boundaries, this says posture and relationships, and there's absolutely no relationship that should not have a fine line or a boundary. And that's about, self-care, and that's about self-love, and that's about, actually looking after yourself, right? And where you create boundaries, right? And even two very close friends, they could be sharing anything, but there are certain boundaries that should not be crossed. It should not be taken for granted, right? And like she said, you can't pour from an empty cup. So until and unless we don't have that self-worth and self-esteem and the other things, it's very, very difficult to kind of give it to anybody else also in a relationship, right? And then another thing which I think relationships very important is your listening skills, right? Sometimes we just love to talk about ourselves. We love to talk about what we are doing, what we've done, what the times we've had, and blah blah blah. In a relationship which is give and take, it's very, very important to listen. And I just feel God has created that, he's given us 2 ears and one mouth, so it has to be used in that proportion also. The moment you start doing that, you start being a good listener, it really helps you with your relationships as well as. And I think world needs more of people who are empathetic. Empathy is such a important thing. I think whether it's a relationship with a family, whether it is your friends, whether it is, your colleagues, whether it is anybody around you. Empathy is what it is. It just gives you a different perspective. And you know what? The surprising part about human beings is that we always judge others by the actions that they do, and we always judge ourselves by our intention, right? So if we can actually get into somebody's shoes, I mean, for example, even your parents can get into children's shoes and just think, what is going on, how things are happening. I wanted to, you hear a lot of times, oh, I really wanted the best for them, or parents saying something and the children not probably understanding, and they take it as nagging or anything else. You're probably just going into their shoes and trying to understand. So the moment you empathize, that is where a lot of things starts really working out for you. So I think this is very important, very very important, where relationships are concerned. So who can you trust, right? When we talk about relationships, and then when to lead and when to follow in a relationship, right? Everybody, if you're in a relationship, it could be any relationship. Again, I don't want to define relationships today, for a very simple reason, that it could be any relationship. Everybody will have their phases of sometimes two friends, and one can be a little stronger at times, and the other could lead at that point of time, of whatever their strengths are, right? It's not a power game. It's not about that. It's about whoever is better at whatever can lead, right? And it's always a great idea to be number two, because the most you learn is when you're number two and number three, rather than always wanting to be the number one, right? I for once am very very happy, being number two, number three, number four, right? So that I can get enough things to learn, and then of course one can lead, right? So it is said, now you have to be the best follower before you can be the best leader, right? So that becomes very very important. So ego is something that you know I heard the story and I thought it's so relevant. This is about Lord Buddha, who in one of his sermons, he carries a handkerchief with him. And, his disciples ask him, in fact, they're surprised because he's never ever carried a handkerchief, right? For one of the sermons, right? And he starts tying those very fine knots. And, that entire handkerchief is, those knots are tied. And then he shows it to his, to his followers. And he says, okay, what do you see? He says, of course, it's, it's all knotted up. He says, okay, so what if you open the knots, and then it's difficult to open the knots? He gives it to someone, so that person says, Ki, maybe if I know how you had tied the knot, it's easier. Otherwise, it's difficult to open the knot. So every time we have a kind of a problem in a relationship, right? It could be an argument, it could be a quarrel, it could be anything. So the moment we are kind of not ready to to solve things, we are just making those knots even tighter. So, instead of untying certain things, we just keep creating knots, which just becomes tighter and tighter and tighter over a period of time. And that kind of starts, kind of starts defining, the relationships for us, and also starts defining how flexible we are, or how happy we are we going to be full of anger and resentment, and we're going to be full of that feeling of that unfair things have happened. And that's where we lose our happiness factor, right? And you can't teach love when you're not full of love from inside, right? You can't give happiness if you're not happy from inside, right? So that's what starts defining our years. Then it starts defining our relationships, it starts defining where we are in the journey of life, right? So those things have to be worked on, those things have to be untied, they have to be loosened up, right? And that happens when we are ready to give our ego, right? And so of course people you can trust or lean on is people who have stood the test of time, who have been with you through thick and thin. People, honest people, I feel they're the best. I mean, they can be at times a little unnerving when they say things right on your face, but you know what, having said that, they are the best people, right? And sometimes when we ask people to be honest, we also have to be the right people. I've had a lot of times people tell me, okay, tell me what exactly, and then you tell them, and then they get defensive about it, right? So to get the feedback also. And you need to be more open there, right? Then I said, then of course, straight talkers, people who are open. And I think friendship and relationships, you have to be straight. The more you keep going round and round, the more knots are there, the more challenges that happens, right? It should be okay, we've talked, maybe you didn't like it, but we have at least done and dusted and we can move on, rather than just going on and on around, and the person not getting the message and then resentment building in. I don't think life is worth it, right? We have one life. We need to build this, people who are your friends and who have stood the test of your friendship. And a lot of times that you people that you socialize together with, a lot of times you're spending a lot of times together. And of course, people, you can trust on people where your core value matches. So for me, for my friendship, it's very important that our core values need to match, right? My relationship is will only strengthen when those at least those basic core values are matched there, right? And then of course we need to work on ourselves. How do we need to work on ourselves? Manpreet has actually spoken about it, but I think no talk about relationships or how we need to work on strengthening those relationships is ever going to be complete without really knowing how we need to work on ourselves. So definitely, there are areas that we need to work on around us. It's not always outside, it's a lot of things are inside. And it's what is inside actually determines what is outside around us, right? So of course, affirmations is something that I wanted to talk about as well, because whatever areas that you feel you need to work on, you just need to affirm. So just keep a affirmation journal with you where you're writing your affirmations, right? And kind of improving in certain areas that are around you. Knowing and working on your strength areas, right? Once you're comfortable and happy about it, you know what your strength areas are and you're able to use it, you will attract a lot of good people around you, and those happy relationships will be forged because you are happy, you know what you are doing, and you're going to be making it into a very safe space around you where a lot of people, also similar kind of people, can come, and very nice progressive relationships can be worked on. Confidence is again something that I think each one of us needs to work in. So a lot of times affirmations, and of course a lot of times right from your core values to building on some skill sets, or working in that area. I mean, that's a different topic again, how to build your confidence. Happiness factor, we really need to work on our happiness factor. There can be 10,000 reasons not to be happy, but I think few reasons to be really, really happy and grateful today. I spoke to my friend in the morning today, and he was writing his gratitude journal, and I think, oh wow, the core value matches there. A person who's grateful, is somebody who can have a beautiful and cultivate beautiful relationships around them, and that's the kind of person even I would want to be around, right? So work on your happiness factor, find something to be grateful about, right? If you're happy, when you enter there, it is said that when you enter a room and you come across people who are happy and laughing, you suddenly you're attracted towards them. You want to go and sit in that group, which is just appears happy, rather than somebody gloomy standing in the corner. Their vibes and the aura around them is all depleted, and vice versa happens to the other person. So what kind of a person you would want to be, right? So that happiness factor becomes very, very important. Loosening up in life, and also changing mindsets. We are not trees, we can move, we can change, we can improve, right? So that mindset, if somebody was living with that mindset, let's change it. Let's work on certain areas where we can actually help and improve our life. First of all, it's about improving us, issues that are troubling us, where relationships are concerned, and then the others around us will also start working. Yeah, and that Manpreet also said, forgiving yourself, right? Not being very harsh on ourselves, forgiving, loosening up in that manner, also forgiving yourselves, right? Making it easy for yourself and making it easy for others, right? Don't be too bottled up. Don't keep things very, very bottled up. Speak about it, talk about it, communicate about it, laugh about it. I think sense of humor is the best thing that anybody can have in today's world, right? Laugh, and then of course look after ourselves. Really, really look after ourselves. If I love myself, I can love anybody, right? If so that becomes very, very important. And these are few intangible things that can actually help you to develop into the person that you're wanting to be. And the moment that happens, your relationships around you, start improving like anything, and stronger relationship starts happening for you. But that journey starts from us. So if we have to make a change, we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and say the change happens from here. There are things that have to improve from here, and that's where we see amazing things around us happen. So with this, I come to the end of what I wanted to discuss with you today. It's always a pleasure, and I'm handing you back to the MC now. Bye bye.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing the information with us. Surely everyone listening are now more educated on how they can set boundaries and manage their relationships in a better way. Our third speaker for the evening is Mr. Anil Sharma. Mr. Anil Sharma passionately and compassionately works with youngsters, mentoring them and coaching them, learning about them and learning from them. His learning is understanding about how Gen Y and Gen Z think from observation and working with them and not from books. Anil has rich corporate experience in leadership positions. His background pertains to engineering and MBA. I would now request Sir to please enlighten our audience.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and happy Valentine's Day, as it turns out to be. And I thought, and you can remove the slide. I don't have slides to talk, so you can unshare these screen slides, Ananya. So I thought the organizers kept me as a cover so that the uh, webinar doesn't finish early. Actually, I didn't need to speak. More so after Manpreet and Pooja have so nicely covered the whole relationship thing. And, uh, and I just was thinking what qualifies me to talk on relationships at all. I've been on a short fuse. I yell at people and I can put anybody off. And then I was looking back, I've never broken a relationship ever. And never ever, if I've made a relationship, has gone away. Lately, I've learned not to encourage some people in life, but I've never gone off a relationship, and despite all my inadequacies. And that's why I think two things help a lot: building trust with people. Same people you yell at may yell back at you, as long as both you can both trust. You can trust the intention, you can trust the person behind those words. So I was just thinking, what else, what could happen, if what would be your best uh, 3, 4, 5, 7 relationships if you are a teenager? Maybe your friends. At the moment you're not thinking maybe about your parents, because you much too much into your own stuff, and your life revolves around 3, 4, 5 people in your class or your neighborhood. What happens when you are in your 20s? Maybe you start seeing a girl or a boy, and that's an important relationship, and some of you start realizing, yeah, your parents have done something for yourself. And many times you hear your parents, you'll know when you get children, and now you realize you should respect. And if you're in your 30s, you've got children now you can empathize with your parents more, maybe. And in your 40s too, and then your relationships span across at home, in friends, and at your workplace. So what is important, I feel that it's both. I mean, there is never over communication, and there is never over communication in a relationship. That does also not mean that communication is the only thing around which relationships should surround. Pooja covered it, that it should be value based, maybe some boundaries. And sometimes a relationship comes without a purpose to start with, but you can start finding purpose in life, and you can start finding purpose in those relationships sometimes. And sometimes you have to say maybe not, because the people you got around you are the best people, who care for you more than what other qualities they have. There could be 5 people who care for you more than you can care about yourself, and that's why they are around. And then you have to segregate maybe. So I was listening to a YouTube video on uh, a Harvard study done on 75 for 75 years on the same uh, students who came passed out. For 75 years, the study went on, and the study goes on for some remaining people who are now in their 90s. And at the end of the session, the speaker quoted Mark Twain saying, "There is no time as brief as life for bickering, heart-burning, apology, calling to account. There is only time for loving, and but an instant, so to speak. Good life is built with good relationships." Now, how do you define those good relationships? I think enough is said. I just still feel that especially when I talk to Gen Z and Gen Y, I see a lot of communication, text communication, and a lot of text exchange. So I would still pick the phone up and communicate when I see a lot of text is not working right. So I still feel Pooja did touch that you are relating to not things, you're relating to people, and it's that touch and feel and seeing somebody physically and talking it over helps. And no video conferencing, I mean, they're very effective. COVID has taught us, but there is no substitute of sitting across people, sharing your mind out. And what could be a typical relationship be? And I was just thinking, what would it have? A typical relationship would have hate, love, care, anger. Sometimes you're angry, sometimes your friend, partner, child, mom or dad are angry. And sometimes you confront, but sometimes you let it go. So what happens? The common people, some will yell back, and that's fine. Some will, keep quiet and let the other person yell, that's fine too. And I feel I hear a lot of heartbreaks, toxic relationship breakups, and many a times I feel sleep over it that night maybe helps, because next day you may be normalized. 48 hours later, maybe you are normalized better. And if you see uh, especially conflict, because we judge relationships more in conflict than in harmony, because then we take those relationships for granted. So in that conflict situation, I feel if you sleep over it, give yourself time to react, act, even if you have yelled back, next morning you can pick the phone and say sorry to somebody. And I just felt that uh, an average person, a normal person, is very timid when it comes to accepting a fault and saying sorry, I'm sorry. And I found it's very liberating. Every time you can recognize you made a mistake and you can apologize, it empowers you back. And when you really, really do that, the other person gets it too. So sorry and thank you, right? And everything in between, and not taking things to your head and heart, I mean, can stop a lot of heartbreaks, breakups, friends calling goodbye to each other. What for? You don't have to even declare that. And some people will shape out just because you kept quiet. But if you genuinely felt, you could have done, at the least you could have done was to raise hand if you apologize. There will be people who are arrogant. They'll never, ever agree, even if they commit heinous crime. And that's fine. They'll shape out from your life. But I think on an argument, on a conflict, on a bad day, we don't take judgment call on our relationships. We spend time, and if you have not spent time, the relationship hasn't even started, I believe. You've not known the person. So give yourself time first to start a relationship, then live a relationship. And this Harvard study said people who at 50 have So, okay, young people, 20 to 30 to maybe even 35, 40 dollars, name, fame, money is what is important. Most of people in the study at 50, they were past it. Majority was past it, whether they had money or not. It was just a few relationships, and I can count on my fingers. I'm 51. Who those relationships are, which are actually holding me together. So I would say that uh, things will change, and if you are on a trip now, in dollars or in fame, it's fine. You will figure it out. Don't quit on yourself. Even if you're going through the motions, even if the time going is tough, even you had a bad day, even you had a breakup this morning. I mean, this shall pass. Next Valentine is going to be better. Tomorrow is going to be better. So that's what I would say. I would just say that, and of course, don't compromise on your basic core values. But do you know your core values are correct? They're built around correct means. They're built around correct things. They're built around a, a normalcy, for example, a normalcy of behavior. So if you need to shape in, you shape in first and give others chance to shape in. Else, you will shape out yourself from a relationship, not because of choice, because of who you are. And if you are the right person, wrong people will shape out themselves. You don't worry too much. Being honest, being truthful, being straightforward at times, but giving people space at other times, keep the relationship strong. And I believe in it, and I'm trying to live those. Thank you very much. I will look for any questions if they come.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your views on the topic. I'm sure the audience is more informed on the subject and how they can change their approach towards relationships. Now, we would like to share our app, MentorMitr, with you all. The app is available on Play Store. You can download the app only on Android devices for now. The iOS version will be available very soon. The download is free of cost. Our app is available in India, Philippines, China, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Italy, Malaysia, Nepal, Russia, Spain, and Thailand. It will be launched in other countries soon. Kindly download our app and get help in your career. If you have any queries regarding the app, please feel free to contact us or drop a mail at contact@mentormitr.com or connects@mentormitr.com. Now, we would like to proceed to the question and answer round by our audience. The first question is by Natalie. Sometimes when you start building boundaries and protecting yourself from toxic relationships, you are considered to be crazy. How can you change that, at least a bit? Ms. Pooja, would you like to answer the question?
Miss Pooja, you aren't audible.
Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, great, great. So if if I've heard the question correctly, the question is that, if you set those boundaries, you are sometimes perceived to be crazy, right? Um, Yeah, so I would say, not really. Because if those boundaries are created and they are created from a space where you want, where you want to be, safe and secure and happy in terms of what is it that you can place on the table, and what is it something that you can, you would not want to, get into, then I don't think, and I don't think you really have to, worry about how the other perceive, your boundaries. Your boundaries are your boundaries. You know exactly what is important to you. So a lot of people, I think, a lot of right people will perceive it in a right manner, and somebody who doesn't perceive it properly is probably not, kind of thinking very very good for you, or is not, open in terms of that. So I don't think it is about, being perceived as crazy, right? So you don't have to worry about that part. But then, having said that, those boundaries are important, boundaries which make you feel safe, secure, and which will ensure that, your well-being is absolutely on priority and is being looked after.
Thank you for the answer, ma'am. The next question we have is, how can you maintain a long distance relationship during the lockdown? Mr. Anil sir, would you please address the question?
I mean, I would be wrong person to answer this, but I feel that uh, lockdown has also taught us to be more connected digitally, like we are now. So you're finding an answer to this from a real long distance, maybe already. So I think this is if it is uh, particular distance is a problem. I mean, a long distance relationship will always be, uh, you know, will take more effort to keep. But I feel lockdown has taught us that we can connect digitally like this. We can share our feelings, what we can do face to face on a Zoom call or on a Google Meet call, and slot time, be regular, be disciplined to do that, and be transparent about what's going on in life. Because I feel that more transparent and more trust you build in a relationship, uh, the distance won't matter. And technology is enabling in this period. I hope that answers it.
Yes, sir, it surely does. The next question we have is by Firoz. Is it fair to judge a person in an unsuccessful relationship? Ms. Pooja, please, would you please take up this question?
When a relationship is not successful, it is not successful for a lot of reasons. I've and Today, definitely, in today's world, yeah, judgments do come out very very quickly, but I always feel when certain things don't happen with, two people, it's not to be judged in the sense it's nobody's fault. It is a collective thing that either worked or did not work. So we come across a lot of people, and let me give you an example of couples here. Let's say if a marriage and a divorce happened. Sometimes it happens that two good people do not share the same kind of, like I said, the wavelength or the core values or lot of other things. So it doesn't make anybody bad. It's not about being judgmental about anybody. It's not about judging someone that it's their fault or it's because of this. It's sometimes two good people cannot be friends. Two good people cannot be partners, right? So something that has not worked because of a lot of reasons, and anything in life which has not worked is going to teach you and provide you with that lesson of how you can make things better, next time. So I think everything is a learning opportunity, and it's not about judging and saying, okay, because of this that has happened. It's a collective thing. It's because of a lot of other reasons around us. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Is there something that you would like to add, sir?
Uh, did you set goals for a successful relationship when you started? If you did not, how do you know it has been unsuccessful? Maybe you already had so many lessons from it. So I would not like to add more to it, but I would say that, at times you don't start defining how a relationship will become successful or unsuccessful. You tread the journey. And as I said before, you can reflect upon what went wrong, and if you can correct it, uh, and if there is a scope that you can correct it, go do that. And you do your bit, and the other person will figure out also what to do. And if that relationship terminates after that, I think it's okay. Take the lesson and move on, and let the other person move on too. That's it, Kritika, for the moment. If you have anything else to ask.
Thank you, sir. The last question for the evening is, life coaches help people with relationship problems, but who helps them in such situations? Sir,
Who
would you
helps,
like to answer this?
who helps life coaches, you mean?
Yes, sir.
So I guess the person asking this is a life coach himself or herself, maybe. So what's true for anybody else is true for you. You going through your life too, and your life is not their life, which means that so you became a life coach. Now, life coaches coach in different areas of life. Relationship is one part of that. Life coaches coach people how to communicate effectively. Life coaches coach people how to be more confident. They also coach people on how to, how to succeed, how to manage their time effectively, how to, optimize their daily work, how to do work-life balance. Maybe your relationship is not your strength itself. That doesn't mean, well, you are not a good coach. Life coach could, but as I said in the beginning, uh, they've they're because they've been coaching people. I think they're in a better position first to self-reflect they have been teaching others and analyze what has been going wrong. And if they can't help themselves, they also should go to get counsel. That's what I would suggest. But yeah, I mean, so don't think if you could not have a relationship one, you still could be a good life coach in various other areas of your profession. And but if you are a life coach, is no guarantee that you are the best person to have relationships. So which means that you need to learn, you need to change. That's what you want others to do, listening to you, isn't it? Why don't you do that? Then the life coach also has to go to his coach or her coach. And if they've not thought of it, find one. This session might help too. Maybe they save the cost and the effort of doing that. And that's why we are talking on MentorMitr, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Pooja,
Thank
would
you
you
for
like
your
to add?
suggestion. Thank you for your answer, sir. With this, we come to the end of our question and answer.
Yeah, I just asked Pooja if she would like to add on to this.
Sure. Ma'am, is there something that you would like to add?
I think Anil, you have answered that beautifully. I just feel that that's no indication. I mean, we do come across doctors who are cardiac surgeons who probably would also have any heart ailment. So that doesn't it doesn't define things in that manner. Of course, the more you interact with people, the more you realize about certain things, certain areas, the learnings that you take on in your stride. You kind of develop a lot of things and understanding, and then definitely you get more sorted in terms of all those areas, and then hence solving a lot of issues of your own, whether they're a relationship or any other issues, become far more easier, right? So and Anil just answered it beautifully. I'm just adding a couple of points there, so that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, we come to the end of the question and answer round. I would like to thank all our speakers as well as the audience for giving us your time and support. Thank you for attending and engaging in today's session with us. Lastly, I would like to repeat the steps to avail the e-certificates. To attend the full webinar, once you see thank you displayed on the screen, There will appear a link to Google Attendance form in the chat box. Click to mark your attendance and get the feedback form emailed. Fill the questionnaire that you receive on your mail for the details. Follow our page on Instagram and Facebook. If the above stated steps are followed, an e-certificate will be automatically mailed to you. The certificates will be mailed within 24 to 48 hours. Kindly have patience for the same.